It's time to learn about jazz.
Go. Yay! Jazzercise?
No, kids. Jazz music.
Jazz music originated at the beginning of the 20th century in the southern United States. The movement started in African American communities among blacks who had learned to play European instruments. Blending the European music with African musical patterns and styles, a new form of music began.
I heard that the musical theory of jazz uses blues notes, improvisation, polyrhythms, and syncopation, and the swung note, syncopation, which all originate from West African musical traditions.
That's right, Sally. The musical theory of jazz does use blues notes, improvisation, polyrhythms, and syncopation, and the swung note. And they all do originate from West Africa. What I bet you didn't know, Sally, is that the first jazz music to be found in public American society was the Dixieland music of New Orleans during the 1910s. Very early 1910s, as a matter of fact.
Who started it, Mr. Burgundy?
Well, Sally, Jerry Roll Morton, a black pianist who played in southern cities for a living, composed the first recorded jazz composition in about 1905, and published it in 1915 as the first published jazz composition. His Jerry Roll Blues was very popular in Midwestern and southern cities.
What instruments are used in jazz music?
Well, at its origins, jazz music used such instruments as the piano, the clarinet, the cornet, trumpet, tuba, banjo, trombone, tenor saxophone, and, of course, drums. As jazz moved on later in the century, it began to use every single instrument that was found in mainstream American music.
Who are some of the biggest jazz entertainers?
Well, I'll tell you, Sally. In its origins in the 1910s and 20s, there were many famous jazz bands, but the most popular went something like this. The original New Orleans Jazz Band, the original Tuxedo Jazz Orchestra, Mamie Smith's Jazz Hounds, Louis Armstrong and his orchestra, King Oliver's Creole Jazz Band, Jimmy Durante's Jazz Band, Jerry Roll Morton's Red Hot Peppers, Fletcher Henderson Orchestra, and the Syncopating Five. Lastly, the Wolverine Orchestra. In swing music, a main section of brass, woodwinds, or strings is driven by a core percussion section which gives swing music its distinctive rhythm. A melody played from improvisation is usually played over the band. Latin jazz is a hybrid musical style of African American jazz and Latin American jazz from countries like Brazil, Puerto Rico, and Cuba. It developed after the swing and big band subgenres around the 1950s and 60s. Way after I was born, Kenny. It normally uses a straight rhythmic pattern in contrast to the swing patterns of the earlier jazz knuckleheads. The funk subgenre came to be in the 1960s when certain performers of African American jazz music gave up the overpowering melodies and harmonies of traditional jazz and placed a drum beat with an electric bass line in the spotlight. Funk music, unlike most jazz, is based more on a single chord than a diverse progression and thrives off of a strong groove.
Trees of green, red roses I see them blue for me and you, and I think to myself, what a wonderful world. I see